Je pense sans cesse à toi.
Hello and welcome to The Foretop. It's a roundtable discussion of today's hot button topics in food and beverage. I'm your host, Catherine Cole. In episode 58, we will be examining some of the ways in which technology and society are changing the sensual experience of dining. First, we'll discuss the ways in which restaurant soundtracks have changed in recent years. Next, have you noticed that the cannabis compound CBD is starting to show up in packaged drinks and on restaurant menus? We have, and we're wondering if it's even legal. I think we need to hash this out, and I'm sorry for the pun. Finally, AR, or augmented reality, is making its way into restaurants, and we are talking about the sensual feasts that are far more sophisticated than Pokemon Go that you can experience in these restaurants. Here in the studios of OPB, we are joined by Drew Prindle, Emerging Technologies Editor at Digital Trends and also a contributor to The Manual. Hi.
How's it going?
Great. And Liz Crain, culinary author, fermentation doyenne, and cannabis expert. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Catherine.
And Michael Zusman, dining critic and author. Hello.
Catherine, good to see you again.
Good to see you. All right, let's get into our first course. Move over, Muzak. Today's chefs and restaurateurs are expected to be tastemakers, setting not just culinary and design trends, but also building soundscapes to match their cuisine. And now grocery stores are getting in on the trend as well. I don't know about you, but I'm always talking about the Whole Foods playlist. Michael Zusman, as a dining connoisseur, I know you go out like almost every night of the week, and a critic as well. I'm wondering if you've noticed that restaurant music has changed in recent years?
Well, let's just say when I first started going out, there were no soundtracks. I think it was pre-Muzak, so it's changed radically. And I still look at dining out as meal, food, and social experience, and then the music comes next. But I do like a good soundtrack, and I think they become more sophisticated with Pandora and Spotify. I know a lot of the chefs around Portland, and I think elsewhere as well, are trying to match what they're serving with some kind of mood music to go with it. And it makes a lot of sense unless it becomes too intrusive.
Mm-hmm. Liz, I think you have a DJ in your life.
I do. Yeah, my boyfriend is DJ Jimbo. He's actually just started to kind of dip into the curated playlists for restaurants field, if you want to call it that. He does a lot of DJing of weddings and food and drink events, and but it's been kind of frustrating for him, and I think that it's ultimately not something that he'll end up doing. I think that he's looked into Spotify and the professional system that you can have set up for that, and so he put together like thousands of songs, and then maybe, 10 or 15 or 20% actually were accepted through the licensing. And then it's sort of, if you like this, then you might like this. And you might like this part was kind of not so likable. I'll say that.
I was somewhere, one of the new restaurants, a new restaurant a couple of nights ago, and I ended up chatting with the chef knowing I was going to come here. And they do a Spotify where their maybe it was Pandora, but their base is the band and ZZ Top. And from there, they're trying to fill in the gaps with sort of a classic rock and roll with a country twist to fit their menu. And I found it actually pretty pleasant for the most part.
Oh. Well, so I want to back up for our listeners. So I did a little bit of research going into this, and it turns out that Spotify and Pandora are basically only for personal use, so you have to purchase a business version if you're a restaurant. And the Spotify business is $27 a month. I signed up for the free trial. It's called Soundtrack. And the thing that I noticed right away is it seemed to be kind of too simplified. And Liz, maybe that's what you're talking about was...
Yeah, I think, and I've used Spotify, just the non-pay version where you get all the loud ads and it's kind of irritating. But yeah, I think that the idea is that there's very little at that low entry fee of $27 a month that you can do with it that's personalized. I'm sure that they're marketing it in an entirely different way than I'm explaining it right now. But it seems like, I think the bulk of what he put together was kind of, shuffled off to the side, and then here's what we think that you should be playing. So I don't know how they come up with that algorithm, if it's, musicians that are, they're trying to promote at the moment, or I'm sure it's very complex, but it just it's not the most fun thing as a DJ who loves to really curate mood, and, especially in a restaurant where you're thinking of your employees and the people who are dining and wanting this complete experience, and then having, 80% of what you've chosen kind of pushed aside and kind of other music. And I guess it wasn't that sophisticated. It didn't really seem like he didn't understand the choices where the songs were subbed in. It didn't make a lot of sense,
And by the way, who knew that a restaurant owner has to A, hire a DJ, and then B, pay for this service?
Right.
I guess I just sort of imagined they were just spinning records in the kitchen or something.
That's
until I started looking into it.
Some of them are still doing, some of them are doing real simple, doing it themselves, creating playlists. I don't know whether they're paying for the license or not. So they are truly customizing a list that they really like. And again, mostly I like it, but Liz and Drew and Catherine too, don't you ever go out, though, when it's like too loud or too intrusive? You're trying to have a conversation with a friend, date night, whatever, and you just have this kind of grinding, loud, obnoxious music that actually interferes with the experience rather than augments it?
Oh, there's absolutely a right way to do this and a wrong way to do this. And I feel like most of the time restaurants get the volume right and, have the right tracks and everything. But I've had a couple situations where it's just too in your face. So it can definitely detract from the experience if it's not executed properly.
Yeah, and I think also like a lot of, just speaking of Portland in particular, but we have these sort of cacophonous spaces where it's like lots of hard surfaces and concrete and stainless steel, and just adding really like loud music to that makes it hard to converse. I'm 42, and I definitely never thought that I would be the one complaining about noise level in restaurants. I'm not sharing that with anyone but who I'm dining with, but it's, God, I wish that they could turn it down a little bit, because the conversation and your loved ones are...
I haven't mentioned it in a review yet, but there may be a time when it comes up, because it can be too in your face, and you don't want to out-clever yourself. Again, as a host running a restaurant, again, you're a host. You want to serve great food. You want to give people a comfortable space. If you can, again, augment the experience with a soundtrack, great. If you're just being annoying and intrusive, just turn it off.
Yeah. I'm surprised. We're going to talk a little bit about how technology is entering restaurants. Everything's so sophisticated and advanced now. Why don't restaurant owners know to put, some soft coverings on the walls and windows to just absorb some of that sound? Because I don't think anyone enjoys being in a space where everyone's just yelling.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. It's just, you've been at restaurants where there's like foam under the tables, or there are different ways to sort of, slightly dampen that harsh sound. Fabrics, plants.
Yeah.
It's hard. I know a restaurant owner, they went from one space, it's a nationally known restaurant, Kachka. They went from a really intimate space where they play almost all Russian folk music, and it was fabulous, and they had just the right tone. It was not intrusive, but you could hear it if you wanted to. They moved to a much larger space recently, and they had a hell of a time getting the acoustics right. So they weren't even – it just took some work getting people in the restaurant and making some adjustments. So, again, they were able to carry the tone over to the new space.
Well, I want to get back to this idea of playlists. Has anyone noticed that famous chefs and restaurants have playlists that you can follow? And I know the publication I work for, 750 Daily, we actually have a series that we're running where we interview really cool sommeliers about their playlists. And it's this whole thing where people in restaurants are expected to be trendsetters. Have you noticed this, Drew?
I was not aware of this at all. I'm very intrigued, though, because, sometimes you'll just go to a cafe or something and think, man, they're just rocking it right now. I really want this playlist. It never even occurred to me that you could probably search for it and find it on Spotify.
I saw that David Chang posted his playlist, and I don't know if it's for all of his restaurants or just one of them, but on Spotify. So it has thousands of songs. And it made me happy because the second song was a song from Boy, U2 album, which is one of my I love that album. But I think it's fun. Yeah, it's fun to look through. I just think like licensing is kind of wild how it's changed so much in recent years. Like I remember I worked at a little cafe in Portland, Alameda Cafe, and it was right when it's like 2003, 4, 5, when the licensing was really coming down heavy and calling the restaurant a lot. I don't know which company it was, if it was BMI or, but we were getting calls on a weekly basis just asking, what kind of music do you play? What's the ambience like there? Or even like very sneaky trying to get you to divulge information so that then they could say, well, those tracks aren't licensed and you need to sign up with this service or we'll sue you. And I don't know a lot about it other than just as a server in that situation, being scared and just sort of telling everyone, because we just had a 5 CD, changer and listen to Pink Martini or Buena Vista Social Club or whatever it was. But I remember that was it seemed like that was a time when there were lawsuits and kind of fines to be paid if you were.
They were super aggressive for a while with big money fines. I think they were like threatening $25,000 per violation types of fines, huge fines. And so I think it's backed off, but I think most restaurant owners are now aware of it and are, for the most part, compliant. And which is, I have no comment on ASCAP or BMI and whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, but they're trying to protect the artist's interests and take that how you will.
Right.
Well, speaking of legal issues, maybe it's time to move to our next course. Would you like some fresh CBD on that? I went to a pretty well-known restaurant in Portland recently, and the cocktail menu offered CBD floats on any cocktail. And in fact, they said you could do it on your glass of wine. And my wine I was not really enjoying, so I tried it. Wow. Anyway, Liz Crain, you are the co-author of the cannabis book, Grow Your Own, as well as a lot of books about dining. So I thought maybe we'd start with you. What's the story with CBD in restaurants?
Well, can I first, is it okay to just sort of define what CBD is?
Yes,
I think
please.
So CBD is shorthand for cannabidiol, and it's one of the many active chemical compounds in cannabis. And the other primary dominant cannabinoid that is in cannabis is THC. And CBD is largely, this is very simplified, but is largely responsible for the mental sort of relaxation and, the physical body relaxation and sedation that you feel when you're consuming cannabis. And THC is largely responsible for the psychoactive mental experience, the feeling of being stoned or being high. Now, in order to be this CBD that you're talking about that's in food and drink largely, that you're not getting at a recreational shop or a dispensary, like that you're getting at a bar or a coffee shop, this is all hemp-derived CBD. And that means hemp has to contain less than 0.3% THC to be considered hemp. It's from the same species. It's just very, very low THC. So that's just to sort of explain what they are. It's a lot more complicated than that. All of these different chemical compounds combine into what's called the entourage effect. But anyhow, so you're going to bars and restaurants and you have all of these CBD products now. I think largely people are just sort of thinking, oh, well, that's a really relaxing, stress-reducing thing that I can add to my beer, add to my cocktail, or have with my dessert. And they're not doing the kind of question asking that we do with normal farm-to-table aspects. So where was it grown? How was it extracted? Is this there's all different types. So you can extract with butane, you can extract with hexane, you can extract with CO2. So these are
sounds so appetizing.
I know. But it's important to I think that at this point in our consumer culture and in this sort of wide world of cannabis, it's good to kind of complicate it a little bit. I think that people are thinking of it as in sort of that superfoods category of like all things pomegranate juice are just going to make me feel better in life. And that's sort of like, if I just eat an avocado a day, then everything's going to be great. And same with sort of CBD. But one other thing that I know I'm talking a lot, and I want to get your opinions on this, but I just want to say that in mid-December, the Farm Bill was passed. And that happens every 5 years, and that has had a huge impact on CBD nationwide because it legalized industrialized hemp for our entire country, including the plants that are used for many of these oils, extracts, and isolates. And that's something I want to talk about, the difference between extracts and isolates at some point. But I don't know. Have you tried some of these CBD products that are not in the dispensaries or recreational, but that are just at your local bar?
I have had a couple beers that just happen to have CBD in them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so they were brewed with CBD?
I'm not sure if they were brewed with CBD or if they just squirted it into it afterwards, but I saw CBD on the menu. I was like, yeah, that sounds like something I should try.
So, Drew, what did you think?
I honestly didn't notice too much of a different effect. CBD is very subtle. It's not the most, it doesn't hit you over the head like THC does. It's almost hard to notice, especially if it's just like a little bit in one beer. But at higher doses, I am a big fan of CBD. So, yeah.
Right. And you're probably having full spectrum whole plant CBD at higher doses. So at higher doses. And so I do just want to quickly say the difference between isolates, this aromaless, flavorless, solely CBD, no THC powder that's lab produced. That's one type of CBD, and that's in large part what people are using. Not at your fancy cocktail bars. They're usually using tinctures or full spectrum whole plant CBD, and those are the ones where you're extracting other, trace terpenes, which are responsible for the aroma and the flavor, secondary cannabinoids, all of these complicated other parts of the plant. But yeah, I've only had CBD beer too, but I've also consumed a lot of CBD products from my recreational shop or that I've grown at home.
So what did you think of the CBD beer? Did you feel anything different?
No, I did not. I also think it's important to say CBD consumption, it's like having a nutritional supplement. Do you feel vitamin C after you have your vitamin C?
True.
It's just a slow accrual and being on a regimen for it. It's also going through your stomach and your intestines. It's not going right through if you're smoking or vaporizing cannabis. But I was really disappointed that I had a lot of questions at the brewery about the CBD, and there were no answers for me at all, other than it's really great, high quality, and it's super natural. Well, where did it come from? Where were the plants grown? Oh, that's trade secrets. We're the only people that are producing this, so we can't tell you that. And then it had some information about terpenes on the sign, and I said, what type of terpenes? Just really good ones. There needs to be answers to questions at this point, especially since it's such a murky gray area, regulation-wise, legally. So I think that, if we care about where our vegetables and fruits and, proteins are grown and how they're grown and all of these social and environmental issues, then we should care about that with cannabis too.
I think that's one of the tricky parts with CBD, though, because you don't necessarily have to get it in a dispensary. So you're not interfacing with people that are trained and necessarily know a lot about the product. It's just kind of out in the wild, and that's where you do run into people who are just like, oh, yeah, it's top of the line CBD. It's the best stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, Liz, can I just be the skeptic here for a second? Now, I've seen CBD products. I think the only one I've ever used is some kind of roll-on that was for an anti-inflammatory.
Nice.
But,
topical.
It just how much of this is power of suggestion? Because all I was reading about this is minimal clinical studies about the effects of CBD. So I kind of think of veganism and non-gluten and these kind of lifestyle trends. And I'm wondering how much CBD is lifestyle trend versus something that actually is really happening.
See, that's why I think it's very complicated. I 100% believe in the healing properties and recreational, fun, mental properties of cannabis. And I think that it's how the plants are grown and how these chemical compounds are extracted that's most important. So do I think that the, beers that Drew and I had that had CBD in them are having any kind of an effect on us? No, probably not. Do I think that the topical of cannabis coconut oil that I made from my homegrown organic plant has an effect on my tendons after I play a lot of tennis? 100% yes. It's a plant that has a lot of medicinal properties that are analgesic and anti-inflammatory, and we have our first FDA approved pharmaceutical now for
epilepsy, right?
Yeah. So it's a good plant that has a lot of uses, but when we get into our consumer culture and big companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and Molson and Corona are all now vying and getting in. They have CBD products in the pipeline, but they also have THC. So those are the next world of isolates that we're going to be seeing out there. But I do just really want to say Nicole Graff, my co-author of the Grow Your Own book, is responsible for all of this information that I'm giving you. I'm a robot right now. She's the expert, and I'm learning every day. It's a complicated issue.
I do want to say, in all fairness, Catherine, too, from what I've read, there's strong anecdotal evidence, certainly about anti-inflammatory properties of CBDs. And frankly, again, from what I read, the main impediment is the federal government refusing to deschedule CBD, so meaning it's treated as something that has absolutely no potential medical value at all, which is standing in the way of these large clinical studies, which could actually come up with something that's more concrete than a lot of people saying, yeah, it makes me feel better.
Right.
I don't know. I think until then, I just saw yerba mate tea with CBD in it. I think until then, it's just a way for for companies and restaurant owners to get a little more money out of you. It's like, add a little CBD float to your drink. That's $5. Thank you very much. You've already spent $15 on that drink.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity for everyone to just sort of shift their perceptions and think of, well, this could actually be a really good thing for everyone if we're doing this smartly and we're not using pesticides and we're using whole plant, full spectrum. But otherwise, if it's just the powdered isolate that who knows who made, and it's gone through no regulatory bodies, and it's just sort of trusting that this is good for you. And dosage is all over the place too. I mean, just my little research I have not had a CBD cocktail, but there are lots of places in town and nationwide that serve them. But, people are putting between 5 and 25 milligrams in them. And that's a really big difference. And, if you're a wine writer and I'm a food and drink writer, I go out a lot. And if I was every single drink I was consuming when I was out being social or professional had 25 milligrams of CBD in it, what would that do to me over the long term? I want more studies. I want more information before I just jump on the bandwagon. And this is a great thing for me, and believe that. Yeah.
Well, maybe when I tried it, it was closer to 25 because
probably
you all are saying it didn't affect you. I felt like I was stuck in my chair. Like I couldn't get out of my chair.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, if the fire alarm goes off, I'm not going to. I just felt like cement stuck in my place. It was very weird.
Where did you have this?
I don't know if I
could just, so I can keep it for my notes.
Well, I don't want to, I don't want to get this place in trouble, but shall I say it's small wares?
All right.
I mean, it was an enjoyable experience, but I just felt like, oh wow, this is.
And that was just straight CBD. It wasn't any THC at all, huh?
I'm
not sure. Yeah, I don't know what she's using for her source.
I read. There was a source material for our get together today that referred to small wares, and it said CBD. So who the hell knows, right?
Yeah. I do think I just would like to mention that Project CBD is a California-based nonprofit that's dedicated to promoting and publicizing research on CBD. And I did a little bit of, spent a little bit of time on their website and learned a lot. So that's a great resource for people who are feeling like this is something they're interested in, but they're not sure about, want to get a little more info on just the questions to ask. They're doing a good job.
Well, whether you've just had CBD or THC, you are going to feel like you're tripping when you start to go to some of the new restaurants that are getting a lot of attention lately. There's this new concept called AR dining, augmented reality dining. You might be seeing a hologram of your food spinning around on your table, or you might just feel like you're in a scene out of the Matrix. There are all sorts of crazy new things going on with dining and high tech. And Drew, you're our resident tech expert, so I wondered if you know anything about this.
I've seen a few of these. I've never experienced them myself, but I saw a few videos of these things and have heard them because, they come through on the news every so often. There's a story that comes through, but I really don't know how I feel about them.
What is, by the way, what is AR?
AR is augmented reality. So instead of virtual reality where everything that you're seeing in front of your eyes is completely, digital and made up, AR is basically putting a digital overlay on top of the real world. So you could see just like what appears to be like a hologram of something just floating in midair in the real world.
So like Pokemon Go.
Yeah, pretty much. Pokemon Go is a great example of that.
Drew, this just bugs the out of me. This seems like the most obnoxious trend. I was reading a couple of the websites, the place in Spain.
Yeah.
This windy chef talking on his website about, with a fancy little accent about how...
Is this El Saler de Can Roca?
No. It was...
Sublimotion?
Damn it, I can't remember. It's the one that started with an I.
Ibiza is the name of the island, the fancy island that Sublimotion is on. If anyone wants to Google this.
Okay,
keep talking.
And so, I know that I was in Shanghai and I was doing my research, where should I go eat? And primarily I just wanted to eat Chinese food. But there is a place there called Ultraviolet, which again focuses on all these multi-sensory experiences. Like I'm thinking, this is... I want to go eat. I want to have a comfortable dining experience and have great food and maybe talk to somebody if I'm with someone. And this is just completely over the top as far as I'm concerned. Now, some people may think it's all just fantastic entertainment. I will go as far as to say I've had meals at Alinea when there was some smells involved and some smoke. I thought that was pretty cool. But, the criticism that even is of molecular gastronomy and modernist dining has limited it to a very tiny percentage of people who actually think it's worthwhile. This is a step that's, to me, completely over the top. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Michael, I'm kind of with you for the most part. Like, I really love where their heads are at, where their hearts are at with some of this stuff. Like, let's... take the whole dining experience beyond just taste and smell and sight and make it a little bit more immersive and stuff. But it's just going a little bit. It's going to the point where it's actually distracting from the experience of food, in my opinion. In a lot of cases, like one of the examples that we have here was there's an app that does AR menu items, so you can kind of flip through a menu and see what you're going to eat. And that's cool, but doesn't it kind of ruin the surprise of the whole thing at the same time? Like instead of reading like ingredients and saying, "Hey, that might be tasty. I like all of those things. Sounds like it might be an interesting combination." And then when it comes, you get to see it and you get to smell it. And it's very exciting in that moment. Would some of that be lost if you were just seeing like a perfect AR representation of like one that had previously been cooked?
That is a really good point, because I love that moment when the waiter arrives or the waitress arrives and everyone says, "Oh, that looks so good."
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a surprise.
It's like, did you make a good call based on the words on the menu?
Very good point. Well, maybe I should read a description of a couple of these places for our readers. Ultraviolet, the place that Michael was mentioning in Shanghai. French chef Paul Perret takes shape within a bare bones. Oh, sorry, I'm reading terrible notes. I'm going to start over. So this is a bare bones room with no decor, no ornaments, and no views. Instead, there are 360-degree wall projections, table projections, scent diffusers, and a multi-channel speaker system.
What a crockle. And not only that, it doesn't say it there, but they drive you from a secret location to this warehouse, and you presumably have blinders on so you don't know where you're going.
Maybe it's really like the Fire Festival and they're not actually doing any of that and you're just getting a happy meal.
That'd be funny.
They're like, we can't afford all of this. Here's what
We'll
you
take
get.
your $400, but here, have
$400.
your happy meal.
So the place on Ibiza called Sublimation, it's more than $1,600 a person.
Good God.
It is a 20-course meal, which just sounds gross to me, actually. And it's a journey around the world from the bottom of the ocean to the depths of outer space.
It's for people who have more money than good sense.
Yeah, I mean, put all of that effort into the food itself, and I might be interested, but I feel like you're distracting yourself from what's really important.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about noise in restaurants before, isn't the point of going out to sort of enjoy the company of your date or your friends? And I feel like this is all just going to make you not speak to the person you're with.
That's a good point.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate, though. I mean, there is an element of entertainment to a meal for, I think, a lot of people. It's great. I mean, you've gone out with the same person 500 times. You've said pretty much everything you need to say. So once in a while, at least, isn't it a good idea, though, to do something that involves excellent food, but to have some element of entertainment that kind of transcends that and augments it? I think there's a place for it.
Yeah, I mean, I love going to have farm dinners and being out in wine country and having winery dinner. Those kinds of immersive, but a little bit more natural and less expensive.
Yeah, really.
But they're still immersive, and
They're seriously analog, though.
they're pretty analog.
That's analog. But I mean,
Yeah.
I remember my first Alinea dinner. It was a fall tasting menu, and one of the courses came out, and they actually had some burning leaves or something, and it kind of made sense. I mean, I was eating by myself, so I didn't really care. I wasn't talking to anybody, and I thought it was entertaining. I think other people would just look at it and go, "Oh God!" And then this takes it a step beyond that. So I'm a hard no on ultraviolet and sublimotion. I'm just going to pass on those.
I mean, I would go if someone invited me and paid for it.
Oh,
I would
sure.
try it. I mean, I'd like to try that, see what it's like.
Well, interesting connection to our first topic. Muzak has been rebooted or was bought by another company. Let's see if I can find the name of it. Mood Media, and they offer sight, sound, and scent marketing, which, Michael, you were talking about the scent of burning leaves. I don't know. I mean, if I'm there to dine, I want to be able to smell and taste the food and the wine that I ordered. But I don't know. Am I being a curmudgeon, Drew?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, I kind of love the idea of using the food itself to like kind of heighten the experience of food and of dining. That's why I'm kind of wary of all of this AR stuff that we were talking about, because that has almost nothing to do with food. But if you're keeping it to sound, or maybe not so much sounds, but more smells and sights, I guess I'm for it.
And you are, I would think you would be totally pro-tech, but it sounds like you have some...
It seems gimmicky to me. It just seems like a more of it's the neon sign that attracts people there more than it. Yeah, it's just a gimmick.
Drew, I totally agree. And just like a method to suck extra money out of your wallet.
Well, maybe we should move on to dessert then. I would love to share a dessert that is kind of the opposite of what we were just talking about. There is another trend in dining right now called sensual minimalism. And the first example is dining in the dark. Have you guys heard about
I've
these
totally
things?
heard of this.
Yes.
I had a friend actually invite me to it. I couldn't make it, and I am so angry because it sounds awesome.
I had a friend who did that too.
Yeah, so there's a restaurant, it's in San Francisco and LA, it's called Opaque, and they do these dark dining events where all the lights are out, you can't see anything. What I can't figure out is, aren't you constantly dropping food? And did your friend say how it worked out, Drew?
Yeah, no, they said it was fantastic and that I absolutely needed to go, but they're also one of those kind of friends that's just super excited about everything, so I don't really know whether or not to trust the opinion. But, I mean, I love this because it's the polar opposite of the AR thing. Instead of just overloading your senses and completely detracting from the food on your plate, it strips away senses and makes you focus solely on the thing that's in front of you.
Well, okay, so the other trend in sensual minimalist dining is nude dining.
What? Oh, God.
Unencumbered by clothing.
But sadly, Au Naturel, the restaurant in Paris that opened in December 2017, just closed for lack of customers.
Thank God.
I have to read from this. I can't remember which newspaper I found this in, but the quote is, "Once naked, customers could enjoy a 3-course dinner with foie gras, lobster, snails, lamb, or scallops for $58. But all restaurant personnel had to remain clothed for legal reasons, and phones were taken away at the door so that no one could photograph anyone else. Anyway, that's my dessert.
I just don't know, man. That's just, that's kind of gross.
Talk about like changing the experience of dining just with a dose of awkwardness pinched over the top. It's
Well, I did go on YouTube and watch. They did a couple of videos where you can't really. It's kind of blurry. You can't really see any important body parts. And I will say, I think the reason it closed wasn't the fact that everyone was naked. I think it was because the lighting was terrible. They had that like cold, bright light, that's just really
not
awful.
flattering on anybody.
No, and when they brought the food out, the food was just really poorly presented. It just didn't look good on the plate. So I was thinking, well, maybe they need to get it together, in other ways. Maybe this concept could fly. Who knows?
There's only one way to find out.
You got to get the basics right.
Maybe we all just need to take off our clothes. Did someone bring any food and drink? Do we have any? Yeah.
I think that the folks at OPB would be horrified as they walk by this giant window that's next to the studio. Sorry, Michael. Do you have a dessert item for us today?
Can I talk about anything other than tech food?
Okay, yeah.
I am excited because Portland finally is seeing a couple of new restaurants that are actually interesting.
Go for it.
It's been about 2-3 years of basically boring, same chefs doing variations on the same thing. So I am thrilled to report, and I think most people are, that there is a now Thai and barbecue combination called EEM, that just opened this week. I think it's going to be killer. There's another restaurant called Bullard that is one of these stories that you thought it would never open. It was announced like 3 or 4 years ago, and it had fits and starts, and that's
How do
also
you spell that?
Bullard, Bullard,
Okay.
Catherine, and they're doing sort of a Tex Oregon approach to dining, and it works pretty well. And so I'm excited about that. I'm been writing about food here and traveling all over the world and stuff. And my contention has been Portland is so over. Let's move on to Des Moines. And I'm just pleased to say I think maybe there's some new and interesting things happening at home, and I'm not going to have to fly out of here all the time.
So Tex Oregon, you mean like barbecue as well? So
Yes.
It sounds like you're recommending 2 barbecue joints.
I guess I am. How about that? Jeez.
That's good for dessert. Liz, what did you bring for us?
So my dessert is a book, as usual. It's always a book. But the Noma Guide to Fermentation, I'm really excited about. It came out in the fall, right around when I made soy sauce shoyu for the first time, and I was straining it. This book helped me a lot with that. And local food writer Martha Holmberg did a lot of great work on this book. But it's just a really creative look at all things fermentation from a Copenhagen side of view. So they're very place-based at Noma, and they're using yellow peas instead of soybeans for their miso. And there's lots of great illustrations throughout, and it is exciting to me. So I just wanted to share that. It's also just a beautiful book.
It's huge.
It's
too.
huge. Yeah.
My God.
Wow.
How many pages?
That is so cool. You're into the
454.
fermentation, but when you think about it, it's not out there. Fermentation is just flavor. I mean, it's such a basic, natural way to add flavor to everything. I think that's totally cool.
And
But
it's
that
a great way
book
for
looks like
them.
a college textbook.
It does. Yeah, I love the
It
cover.
really does.
But yeah, it's the way for them. I mean, they have such a short growing season, but they're so local place-based with their foods. So this helps them fermentation and, dehydration and smoking and all these different ways to keep their delicious ingredients year-round.
And you said Martha Holmberg had a hand in this?
Yeah, I know that she worked on it a lot, and I'm not sure if it was on all aspects, mostly on recipe development, mostly on editing, but
I am a big fan. Modern Sauces is probably the most used cookbook in my house.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's super talented.
And she's been on the Foretop.
Oh, has
Yeah.
she?
Oh, and for folks, if they didn't catch the name of the cookbook, Noma, Noma, is that famous restaurant in Copenhagen. Rene Redzepi is the executive chef. And yeah, if you're interested in fermentation, that looks like the book to have.
It's pretty fun.
Did it reopen? Did Noma?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been open for a year or so, I think. Yeah.
Just behind the curve.
No, yeah.
So, Drew, did you bring some dessert for us?
I did. So back in January, at the beginning of January, I went to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and I was lucky enough to try out something that wasn't really like technology the same way that you think about technology. It was the Impossible Burger 2. Have you guys heard of the Impossible Burger? It's
Yes.
it's that meatless burger. Yeah, Michael, you're
I'm making faces again.
I had the same reaction.
The first generation, I agree with you. It's kind of weird. It left a really odd. It was like just meat-like enough to be disconcerting, but it didn't actually taste like meat.
And this is the one, to back up, this is the one that's made out of beets partly, so it would like...
No, this is a different one actually.
this is
but
the
it
one
is,
that would bleed?
It is, but they use a compound called heme, which is kind of like, it's almost like hemoglobin. It's a similar molecule.
But bottom line is it's vegan, right?
Yes, completely plant-based, all of that. So they came out with a second formulation. They completely reworked it from the ground up, and I got a chance to try this in Las Vegas, and I was blown away by
that's
the
exciting.
flavor of this one. I mean, it didn't taste like the best burger that you've ever had in your life. It tasted like kind of like a crappy grocery store hamburger, just like, typical.
Well, that's progress.
It was impressive. I was blown away. Like, it tasted like your standard 80-20 hamburger meat that you can buy at the store, and it was completely and totally plant-based. So, yeah, I was just blown away by that.
Can people get it now, or is it?
The way that they're doing the rollout is the same way that they did the first one, which is they release it to a few select restaurants across the country, and then as they ramp up production, they eventually are going to put it in stores. But right now, you can get it in Portland. I believe they have it at the Irving Street Kitchen right now, and also at Jack Rabbit.
Well, I guess it's worth a try.
Pass.
I'm excited to try it. I'll try it.
Pass.
Oh, there goes my paper rattling. Well, special thanks to all you guys today for being our panelists. Drew Prindle, Emerging Technologies Editor at Digital Trends and also a contributor to the manual. Thanks
It's
for
always
being
fun
here.
being here.
And Liz Crain, you are the poobah and founder of is it the Portland Fermentation Festival?
Yep. Yeah, it'll be our 10th annual this fall.
My God.
Yeah.
And also the author of many cookbooks and Grow Your Own,
Yep.
the cannabis book we all need.
Understanding, cultivating, and enjoying cannabis. It's pretty fun.
Well, thanks for being here with all of your knowledge.
Oh, thank you so much.
And Michael Zusman, dining critic and author. Thanks
Hey,
for being
thanks.
here.
I have more fun, and it's great to see Liz and Drew and you, Catherine. So thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here, everybody. Hey, listeners, we love to get feedback from you, so please visit our website at theforetop.org, check out all the links to our social media handles, and just explore the website and let us know what you think. We always want to hear about your feedback to each episode, so go to our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, however you like to communicate and get in touch with us. Izzy Kramer, our assistant producer, also loves to get feedback at theforetop@gmail.com. Today's episode was recorded in the high-fiber, protein-packed city of Portland, Oregon, in the studios of OPB. Alex Ward is our editor, and as I said, Izzy Kramer is our assistant producer. Special thanks to sound supervisor Stephen Cray and the web staff at OPB. And our theme music was performed by the incomparable wine importer, Kermit Lynch. You can listen to our 57 back episodes on your favorite podcast app, and that includes Spotify, iTunes, NPR One, and Stitcher. Or you can get them through our dedicated website, which I already mentioned, but it's at theforetop.org. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye now.
Nuit blanche, nuit blanche, nuit blanche.